It was Christmas Eve, and snow poured in heavy, merciless torrents from my apartment window. The environment was silent, but my thinking was everything but. I had just completed a late shift at the workplace. My tie loosened, and my patience wore thin. When my phone vibrated on the counter, the name on the screen made my chest constrict. Elara. We weren't close, Issa and I. Technically, she was my stepsister, but in practice we were strangers who happened to share a family. She was everything. I wasn't bold, magnetic, and always the center of attention. Yet as I stared at the phone, the nagging memory of our last encounter crept in. It had been at Dad's birthday dinner a few weeks ago. Elara had pulled me aside after dessert, her usual confident smirk replaced with something softer. "You don't belong with her," she said softly, her breath warm on my ear. "She doesn't see you like I do." I laughed off the innuendo, but the expression in her eyes remained with me. "And now she's contacting me late on Christmas Eve," I responded grudgingly. "Elara." "Hey," she said, her voice unusually soft. "I know it's late, but can I come over?" I hesitated. "Is everything okay?" She paused, and I could hear the faint tremor in her breath. "I need to talk to someone, please," against my better judgment. I agreed, fine, but just for a little while. When Elara arrived, she was wrapped in a sleek black coat, her hair damp from the snow. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something, guilt, nervousness, before she smiled. "Thanks for letting me crash your night," she said, brushing past me into the warmth of the apartment. I shut the door, watching her peel off her coat to reveal a figure-hugging dress that seemed out of place for the weather. "Were you at some party?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation light. She shook her head, dropping onto the couch number. "I was supposed to be with someone, but plans changed." Her words hung in the air, heavy with an unspoken story. I grabbed 2 glasses and poured us some wine, hoping to shake off the awkwardness. "So what's going on?" Elara took a sip, her gaze fixed on the Christmas tree's blinking lights. "You ever feel like you're living a lie?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned to me, her eyes glistening. "I've been seeing someone I shouldn't." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "Caspian," she said. Finally, the name hit me like a punch. Caspian, my best friend. The same guy who'd been my confidant since college. The same guy who had stood beside me at my wedding. "You're lying," I said, my voice cold. "I wish I were." She whispered, her hands trembling around the glass. "It started a few months ago. I didn't plan for it to happen, but it did. And now I don't know how to stop." Anger flared inside me, but it was quickly eclipsed by something else. Confusion, betrayal, a sickening curiosity. "Why are you telling me this?" Elara leaned forward, her voice desperate, "Because I can't carry it alone anymore, and because I think he's using me." "What the hell are you talking about?" I snapped. She hesitated, then pulled her phone from her bag. A few swipes later, she handed it to me. The screen lit up with messages, long, flirtatious threads between her and Caspian, some of which included details about me. Conversations where he mocked my career, struggles, my marriage, my life. My chest tightened as I scrolled, each message more venomous than the last. "Why would you show me this?" Tears brimmed in her eyes, "Because I thought I was special to him. But now I see he's playing both of us, and I don't know how to fix it." I stared at her, 1,000 emotions crashing over me. But before I could respond, she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There's more," she said. "He doesn't know it yet. But I've got something on him. Something that could ruin everything." I couldn't breathe. Caspian, my best friend, my brother, in everything. But blood had betrayed me in the worst way. And here was Elara sitting in my living room on Christmas Eve, confessing to a secret that threatened to shatter everything I thought I knew. "What do you mean you have something on him?" I asked, my voice low, almost shaking. Elara hesitated, her gaze darting toward the floor. "I didn't want to tell you, I didn't want you involved. But after what he said about you," she trailed off, her hands clenching into fists. "Elara," I said, firmly leaning forward. "If you've got something to say, just say it." She looked up, her eyes brimming with both guilt and defiance. "I recorded him what? Not on purpose." She added quickly, as if to soften the blow. "It was an accident at first, but then I started to see who he really was. The things he'd say about you, about your wife." My stomach lurched. What kind of things? She hesitated again, then pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She navigated to her audio Elise and pressed play. Caspian's voice filled the room, smooth and confident, yet dripping with venom. "He's too blind to see it. Always chasing some dream that's never going to happen. And his wife, don't get me started. She's just as clueless as he is. Makes it easy. Though people like that are so desperate to believe the lies we tell them." The recording went on, each word slicing through me like a blade. Caspian didn't just mock me. He mocked my entire life, reducing it to nothing more than a convenient backdrop for his own amusement. I clenched my fists, rage bubbling to the surface. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I demanded, my voice harsh because I didn't know how Elara cried, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I loved him, okay? I thought if I just gave him time, he'd change. But he's a monster." Her words hung in the air, heavy and raw. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to make sense of the chaos she had unleashed. But before I could, Elara reached out her hand, brushing against mine. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt you." I pulled my hand away, standing abruptly. "You think saying sorry fixes this? You betrayed me. Elara, you both did." "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "But you need to understand he's dangerous if he finds out. I've told you." What? I snapped. "What's he going to do?" Elara hesitated, then looked at me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "You don't know Caspian like I do. He's not just manipulative, he's controlling. And when he feels cornered, he doesn't play fair." I stared at her, trying to process everything. "So what you're saying, he's going to come after me now, not just you?" She said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Me too. And if he does, I don't know how far he'll go." I paced the room, the weight of Elara's confession pressing down on me like a vice. The man I trusted most had torn my life apart behind my back, and Elara. She wasn't innocent in this either. "What do you expect me to do with all this?" I asked, turning to face her. "I don't know." She admitted, her voice small, but I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. "I thought you deserved to know." "Deserved to know," I repeated bitterly. "What I deserve is for none of this to have happened in the first place." She flinched, but I couldn't stop. "You should have walked away the moment he came onto you. Instead, you let it happen, and now you want me to clean up the mess." "It's not that simple," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible, to crave someone's attention so badly that you'll take it, even if it's wrong." Her words struck a nerve for a moment. I saw through the cracks in her bravado, glimpsing the loneliness and desperation beneath, but it wasn't enough to absolve her. "What did you think would happen, Elara?" I asked, my voice sharp, "That he'd leave my wife alone and run away with you?" She shook her head, her lips trembling. "I didn't expect anything. She paused, as if searching for the right words. "He made me feel like I mattered, like I wasn't just the screw-up. Everyone sees me," as her voice broke, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But before I could say anything, there was a sharp knock at the door. We both froze. "Are you expecting someone?" She whispered, her eyes wide. "No," I said, my voice low. Another knock, this one louder and more insistent. I moved toward the door, every muscle in my body tense. Elara stood behind me, her breath coming in shallow gasps. When I opened the door, my heart stopped. It was Caspian. He stood there, his usual charming smile, nowhere to be seen. Instead, his expression was cold, calculating. He looked past me and spotted Elara, his jaw tightening. "Well," he said, stepping inside uninvited. "Isn't this cozy?" "Caspian?" I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "What are you doing here?" "I think you know," he replied, his gaze never leaving Isa. We need to talk, all of us. I don't think there's anything left to say, I said, blocking his path. Caspian chuckled, but there was no humor in it. You're always so naive. Aren't you always believing the best in people? That's why it's so easy to. He trailed off his eyes, flicking to Issa easy to what I demanded, my hands clenching into fists, easy to take. What I want, he said smoothly. And you never even saw it coming. My blood boiled. But before I could react, Elara stepped forward. Caspian, stop, she said, her voice trembling. This isn't about him. It's about us. Us. Caspian repeated, laughing darkly. There is no us. Elara, there never was. You were just convenient. The words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered back, her face pale. You're a monster, I said, my voice shaking with anger, and you're not going to get away with this. Caspian raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what exactly are you going to do about it? Elara's voice cut through the tension. I recorded you. Caspian, she said, her hands trembling. I have proof of everything. For the first time, Caspian's confidence faltered. His eyes narrowed, and he took a step toward her. You really think that's going to stop me? The air in the room felt suffocating. Charged with an unspoken threat, Caspian's presence loomed large, his confidence teetering but not broken. I stepped in front of Elara, my fists clenched at my sides. You've already done enough damage, Caspian, I said, my voice low and steady. It's over, leave. He smirked the calm facade, returning over hardly. You think a little recording is going to stop me? You have no idea who you're dealing with. I understand precisely who I'm working with. I responded by calling him a liar, a cheater, and a coward. Caspian's eyes hardened, and for a second I feared he was going to lash out. Instead, he laughed with a chilly, hollow sound. You're so predictable, he said, always eager to help someone who doesn't deserve it. He turned to Elara, his gaze slicing through her. Tell him the truth, he said, his voice dripping with venom. What truth? I demanded, glancing back at her. Elara's face was ashen, her lips trembling. Don't, she whispered. Oh, he needs to hear it. Caspian said, stepping closer. Go on, Elara. Tell him why you really came here tonight. I came because I was scared, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't know what else to do. Scared, Caspian repeated, mocking her. That's rich. Scared of what, me? He turned back to me, a twisted smile playing on his lips. She's not scared of me. She's scared. You'll find out what she's been hiding. What is he talking about? I asked, my stomach churning. Elara's silence was deafening. She didn't just come here for comfort. Caspian said, his tone taunting. She came here because she's in love with you. The words hit me like a freight train. I turned to Elara, searching her face for some kind of denial, but all I saw was the raw truth in her eyes. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I couldn't stop it every time I saw you. Every time I talked to you, it just grew. Are you kidding me? I said, stepping back as if the distance could somehow undo her confession. This is insane. I know, she said, her voice pleading. But it's the truth. Caspian didn't just betray you. I did too. Caspian leaned against the wall, watching the chaos he'd unleashed with smug satisfaction. You see, you're not the victim here, buddy. You're just as much a part of this mess as the rest of us. You need to leave, I said, turning to him, my voice trembling with barely controlled rage. Now gladly, he said, straightening up. But don't think for a second. This is over. You think you're angry now? Just wait. He walked to the door, pausing to look back at Elara. You were a pleasant diversion, he replied coldly. But don't expect me to clean up your trash now that he's gone, leaving behind a stillness that was louder than any fight. I turned to Elara, my mind racing. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice heavy with exhaustion. Because I knew you'd hate me. She said, her voice barely above a whisper, and because I knew it wouldn't change anything. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process everything. My best friend, my stepsister, my entire life. It was all falling apart. But before I could say anything else, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen and felt the blood drain from my face. It was a message from Caspian. You might want to check on your wife. She's not as innocent as you think. My heart raced as I stared at the message. What now? Caspian's words weren't just a threat. They were a loaded bomb waiting to explode. I turned to Elara, her tear-streaked face, a reflection of the chaos I felt inside. Get out. I said, my voice flat and cold. What she stammered, stepping closer. You heard me, I snapped, shoving my phone into my pocket. I can't deal with you right now, just leave. Her face crumpled. But she nodded, grabbing her coat. As she stepped out into the cold night, I slammed the door behind her, locking it, as if that could somehow keep the rest of my world from falling apart. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. Caspian's words replayed in my mind. Check on your wife. Part of me didn't want to. I didn't think I could handle another betrayal, another knife in the back. But the other part, the part that couldn't leave things unresolved, compelled me to reach for my phone. I opened our shared photo album, scrolling through the memories, pictures of us, smiling, of vacations, of lazy Sundays at home. But then I saw a photo I hadn't noticed before. It was from a work party. Months ago, my wife was standing next to Caspian, her smile wide and radiant. His hand rested on the small of her back, just a little too familiar. My chest tightened. I wanted to believe it was nothing, just a friendly gesture. But then I remembered his message. He wasn't bluffing. He wanted me to doubt her, to question everything. And it was working. Before I could stop myself, I dialed her number. It rang twice before she answered, her voice cheerful. Hey, honey, everything okay? Where are you? I asked. Trying to keep my tone neutral. At the store, she said, picking up some last-minute stuff for tomorrow. Why? I hesitated, my mind racing. No reason, just wanted to hear your voice. She laughed softly. Well, here it is. I'll be home soon. Okay, yeah, I said, my throat tight. See you. I soon hung up, but the discomfort persisted. I could not escape the sensation that something was wrong. Minutes later, her car's headlights illuminated the living room as it drew into the driveway. I stood there trying to collect myself as she walked with her arms full of shopping bags. Hey, she replied, placing the bags on the countertop. What's wrong? You seem to have seen a ghost. I faked a grin. I was simply sleepy. It has been a long day. She stepped up and wrapped her arms around me. Her touch was warm and familiar, yet it did not feel the same. Caspian's comments poisoned everything. I need to ask you something, I said, pulling back to look at her. Her brow furrowed. What is it? Have you ever felt like I wasn't enough? She looked taken aback. What number? Where is this coming from? I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. But before I could say anything, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, my blood running cold. It was a video. Caspian's face appeared first, grinning like the devil. Then the camera panned, and I saw her, my wife, leaning into him, laughing at something. He said the video cut abruptly, but it was enough. What is that? She asked, trying to peer over my shoulder. Don't, I said, stepping away. Just don't. What's going on? She demanded, her voice rising. I turned to face her, my anger finally breaking free. How long? Her face paled. What are you talking about, you and Caspian? I shouted. How long has it been going on? Her eyes widened, tears pooling as she shook her head. It's not what you think. Then what is it that I requested, since, from where I stand, it seems like the two individuals I trusted the most have been lying to me. She broke down and sank into the sofa. It was a mistake, she sobbed, and it occurred just once. I didn't know what to tell you. Her revelation struck me like a blow in the stomach. When she paused, her face melting on the night of his birthday celebration. You were out of town, and I felt lonely. And this just occurred. I gazed at her, my chest tightening with rage and betrayal. You had a choice. I replied, you both did, and you decided to ruin everything. She wept. I'm sorry. I adore you. Don't take it literally. I responded, cutting her off. Just stop. The room was silent except for her gentle cries, and I felt like a stranger in my own life, with all I thought I knew shattering around me. Then my phone vibrated again. Another message from Caspian. You are welcome.